Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for Aspire Design and Home Tour. Today, the topic is managing client expectations from proposal to completed project. It's a huge topic. Dealing with clients is something that whenever you get a group of designers in a room together, the topic immediately goes to battle talk of dealing with clients. So today we're going to be talking to some exceptional and exceptionally successful designers and architects to learn how do they figure out what their clients' expectations are, how do they manage them, how do they get inside their client's brain, and once that's done, when they figure out what their client's expectations are, how do they then manage that along the way of time constraints, budget constraints, permitting constraints, product availability. These are all huge challenges. And now we have a pandemic on top of that to add yet another layer of challenges. Today's guests are William Harrison of Harrison Design, Olvia Demetriou of HapstakDemetriou, and Rochon of Rochon Design. Their work together collectively, their work includes architecture, interior design, landscape design, product design of both homes, hospitality, and retail environments in the United States and beyond. One quick thing before we get started, there is a Q&A function within Zoom. At the end of the conversation, we're going to be taking your questions. If during the conversation you have a question, you can post it in the Q&A as opposed to the chat. The Q&A is at the bottom of your screen. I will do my very best to answer questions as they come in. If I'm not able to, please feel free to post your question at the end of the presentation. All right, so to kick this off, I'm going to ask all of you, feel free to jump in. How do you, when you first meet a client, how do you get in and begin to figure out what's in their brain? What is their expectation with the project that they've hired you to realize? Rocky, do you want to jump in on that?
I will. I developed a process probably about 20 years ago after having many frustrating experiences dealing with this. And I started a process of using imagery. So what I do when I kickstart a project with a client, I'm looking at the programmatic issues, I'm looking at the contextual issues that have to be solved. But at the same time, I'm trying to look at what is the chi energy or the design concept going to be of the project, and then fusing those components. But at the very beginning of it, when I'm looking at the design concept, I have them go through as many images as possible and start identifying the spaces they love and the spaces they hate. And I also encourage them to do this with little or no inhibition, without any concern about solution. It's a very objective exercise about approaching what triggers them emotionally. Once they do that exercise, I sit with them and I start talking about the individual images and start getting in their head to find out what it is about that image that appeals to them. And we will go through over and over. And actually what's happened for me is within about 15 minutes, the design concept actually emerges almost intuitively. Once that exercise is done, I do what's called quilting. So I'll take the images and print them. I'll put them in front of the client. And this is usually a second follow-up meeting. And I start putting them out on the floor and have them take a look at those images and have them start deleting or removing images that don't resonate with them anymore. Once I go through that exercise, it turns into what I call an image board, which that's the technique I use to get into it. What's interesting with it is that at that point, the client has a really strong ownership of, they usually have a very positive response to it when they see it because they're things they love. Anyway.
Why do you have them choose images they don't love?
What's interesting is, when I first started using the system, they would show me an image and they would say, and I would talk to them. I'd say, okay, what do you love about this? And we would start talking about that. And then I also do things like I'll put my hand over something. Once I've done a few images, I can start honing in on what it is that resonates for them. So I'll start talking about what do you not like in an image? If you could take one thing out of this image, or this room, what would you remove? And then sometimes I'll go to the point where I'll actually put my hand over a piece of the image. I said, is this better or worse? Okay. It's a very psychological process.
Right.
But what I learned early with it is, like, I've had clients who say, I hate orange. I had one specific client say, I hate orange. And I said, oh, okay. And this is why I use the images, because words do not, you have to use the vocabulary of what you're working within, which is visuals. You have to have a visual dialogue. You can't use words. So this one client was saying, I hate orange. Well, the next image they show me is a terracotta floored room. And I'm going, what do you love about this room? And they said the floor. And I'm going, well, I'm glad. I'm glad I didn't take that literally. So the hate, and then you'll have them show you an image, several images that they love, and then they'll show you an image that you swear it looks exactly or feels the same as the previous loves, and they hate it. So now I've got to go in there and figure out what is it about that image that's making that turn into a hate.
Right. So it's a psychological exercise on a lot of levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Bill, how about you? What's your process?
Well, first you get out a drill and drill inside their head, but that's another thing. I think part of what you try to do in a client interview is first determine who the client is if you have the opportunity. What's their profession? What's their point of view? How do they think? Someone that's an engineer will be different from a scientist, different from, say, an author or somebody else. They all have a language or something they think and converse in. And then I think going to Rocky's point is it's a visual arts. So by putting images up, you'll have clients say, well, I love that image. Well, they may like the view out the window, but hate the furniture. And so you have to start dwelling down. And I think what clients don't like is more important than what they do like, because it tells you where not to go. And by not going where they don't want to go, the client then understands that you're listening to them, you get them. And once you get them, they trust you. And then the more you can reinforce it or narrow down in it, then the more trusting they are and the more you can educate them and guide them through the design process for a successful completion.
Right.
And one way you sort of start, think about it as you go to an eye doctor for an exam for your glasses, and they have a range and they stick you in front of that machine and they start flipping those lenses up and down, right? Is this better or worse? Is this better or worse? Better or worse? And you're looking at that. It's the same process that you're starting to hone in with some clairvoyancy and concern, and you're also establishing the relationship and the dialogue, because the relationship with the client and the communication is the most important thing in any collaboration, whether it's architecture, a relationship, or anything. If you don't have those things, you got nothing. And then I think from there, architecture is a service business. We're here to service these clients. We're here to produce this and work our way through it. And the most important thing is to tell your client, if you don't understand something or you don't like something, say it. If you have a question, ask it. There's no such thing as a stupid question. They simply need to feel included. If you can make them the authors of your project with you so that you're on the same team working alongside them, you will get a very successful completion of a project. And architecture and interiors is an objective art. It's not art for art's sake, because there are clients with a want and need. Now, you may not agree with them. We've had clients walk in and what they're telling us once is going to be absolutely horrible. But if we tell them that's terrible, you can't do that, then you get nowhere. But if you tell them that's an okay idea, but have they thought about this, which is similar, but might be better for them. And then you slowly and consciously walk them through your years of experience in design, which they do not have, But if you do it respectfully and kind of, they will get right in there with you. They want to learn. They want to do better. I've never met anybody that wanted to do something bad as a client, but a lot of them don't know any better. In fact, I did Consueda's house, who was the chairman of Coke, who was a brilliant man. I asked him why people do dumb things in life. And he said, well, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man's king. So our client coming in the door may be brilliant at manufacturing, you know, widgets or something, or may be absolutely brilliant at IT, but they really don't have a design sense because they've never been immersed in it. You know, a lot of us, myself in particular, I wouldn't be particularly good at, you know, being a CPA because I don't really like looking at books all day and doing that. You know, I'd rather draw, I'd rather create. And a creative CPA is a bad thing. I mean, you get in all kind of trouble. But I do think you have to really respect the clients, know who they are, so that you can communicate on a level that they feel you're talking the same language. As architects and designers, we have to be very adaptable to convey our knowledge because it's so visual and it's not built yet. It's not like they can walk up to it and say, I love this, I'm gonna buy it. They have to come in and say, they have to buy you first as the architect and designer, and then together you can create beauty.
Absolutely. So I think one thing that's really important that you're bringing up, Bill, is in order to gain this trust on this, to use the hackneyed word, journey, in order to gain this trust with the client, you need to meet them where they currently are, not where they're going to be at the end of the process, where they are really committed to that living room they saw at the Four Seasons in Hawaii, and that is absolutely what they want. So if we can meet them where they are and they can feel absolutely heard, like Bill said, then you pave the way to go on a journey to take them maybe beyond what they think they want. So Olvia, I have a question for you. What do you do to let a client know, I'm 100% hearing you and know what your goal and what you want is, even if that's not where your project is ultimately going?
Right, well, we have so many more tools at hand now than we used to. And I think that we would start projects, you know, all we had was clients looking at magazines, right? And we didn't have before the internet, we didn't have the tools that we have now, which is, you know, pulling on imagery like Rocky is talking about, and Pinterest. And so that really helps us better understand the client, right? By putting imagery in front of them, just as was described. But what we used to do is we'd do this exhaustive, you know, conceptual package where we would pull together imagery, and it would take a lot of time, you know, because we're curating it. And then we would show the client, and like Rocky said, he says, like, tell us which ones you don't like, tell us which ones you like. But actually now what we do, and it saves us time, and it really kind of, it makes the client feel very much a part of the process. We say, oh, we've created a Pinterest page and we want you to pin images that you like. So suddenly they become engaged and part of the process. So that makes them feel like we're listening to them. It's also a record historically, if you go far down the road in the design process, and you can keep reminding them, going back to this and saying, remember, these are the images you liked. These are the images that are inspiring our process. Before it was like shots in the dark. You know, we would pull images, they might like them, they might not like them.
Right.
And again, it's about, you know, the world is wide open in terms of design vocabulary. So you try to, clearly if somebody's come to you, they like something you've done, they like your style. But still that client has a personality, they have art, they have possessions, you know, they have a lifestyle. So you have to kind of understand what that is and make the best of it. You know, like there's one project I've included that is completely out of my comfort zone, design-wise, as an architect, very traditional. And I stumbled on the client because I had done a commercial job for her husband. And she asked me to come over and install an elevator and do a couple pillows. Well, I say we grew from an elevator and a pillow to the entire house being redone, every room to the nines, and highly traditional, which was very outside of my traditional language. And my goal was really that if I can design something that I can't make this client a modernist, right? But if I can design something that they love and that I love and that I feel like I've done well, that's gratifying.
Right.
Clearly, I love more contemporary design, so one hopes your clients will steer you that way.
Right. So you got pushed out of your comfort zone as well. I like that. We have a question from someone, which is, it's a great question. When you're presenting clients with images in the beginning, are you pulling them from your own work or from other sources or both? Rocky.
No, and you know, the process for me is actually really working on losing your inhibition. So being more, not being self-conscious. And to me, it's an important exercise because I think I think individuals tend to put limitations around themselves. So for me, like I want to know if they love that living room in Hawaii at the Four Seas, but I also want them to get away from that as soon as they can. I want them to just shed that and we'll store it over here. We're not going to lose it. And I give them the confidence that I've paid attention, I've listened, but now let's look at a journey. So I have had people go through imaging and they pulled images of my work that they didn't know is my image from a publication. Yeah, and then I'll go, oh my God, that's my work. Which we always giggle. It's kind of a good sign, I guess.
Right.
But no, the intention is that they go on a journey and they own it, and that they come with me and we start to look at it and delve into it.
Okay. All right. So you're A/B testing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good to include your own images, actually, because if you have work that is, you know, important and relevant to the project, you should include it. And it does feel good if they pick that image.
Well, again, I'm not pulling their images. I step completely away from it. We actually send them a little, you know, instruction thing that tells them how to do it, but I completely divorce myself from it. In fact, when I go in to review the imagery with them, I come in with no expectations. I come in as a blank canvas, and I encourage them to do that too. This is very visceral. It's a totally emotional experience. I'm not looking at even any problem solving yet. It's a way I found that I can get into their head. And
Right.
more importantly, I can get into their soul. And there's a difference.
Right.
When I can get to their soul, it's way different than getting into their head. So
Do you ever show them images that have nothing to do with interior design?
yeah. I had a client who was a major person, one of the founders of a major company, high-tech company, a very, you know, well-regarded person, and he was very, very busy. He had started up another high-tech company when I started working with him, and he was engaged to a woman who I gave him the instruction to go through their imagery. And he would cancel last minute every imagery meeting because he wasn't into his homework. And I get a big bouquet of flowers. When I saw the flowers coming in the office, I knew he was canceling, right? Anyway, he finally gave me an image. And you know what it was? A Hershey bar.
Mm-hmm. Which was probably valuable, right?
Yeah, I did a media room, a tech media room for him. It was painted in the color of a Hershey bar. And he loved it. It had like faux mink Hershey colored, you know. So I took the lead with it, and I talked to him about what it was about the Hershey bar. It was a little bit, he's the same person that said, I hate orange, and showed me a terracotta floor.
Gotcha. Rocky, couple people are asking you, what tool or platform do you use to share images?
Well, now because of, as Olvia is saying, because of Pinterest, when I first started doing this, I would have books and books and books, and I'd have them delivered to their home, and a stack of, 3 stacks of magazines. And I actually loved the magazines because I'd tear them out when I was visiting. So I had a good image of when I was doing the quilting. But now everything's gone to Pinterest. So I actually have a new client I started working with during the COVID thing, which was weird. And I had books delivered to her home. She wanted to look at physical books and magazines. So people are different. And, some people get intimidated by Pinterest. Okay. The negative thing with Pinterest, I'll tell you, is that Pinterest wants to think for you. So once you start pulling specific images, it starts feeding you images. And that's antithetical to the process I want people to go through. I don't want them to be fed information. I want them to go look for stuff and not be spoon-fed. they're out there on a journey looking for stuff they maybe never thought they would love.
Right, right. So someone's asking you, Rocky, also, do you send them direct to websites or search engines, or do you have imagery you send internally? That's what he's asking.
Oh, well, what's the question? I don't know if I
So,
understand.
like, are you sending them to specific websites and giving them specific images to choose from?
No. Nope.
All right.
Well, I wanted to jump in because
Yeah.
I do pull images that I want them to lean to. There's no question that, you know, when we put together a conceptual package of imagery, some of it might be just the way the light is hitting a stucco wall. You know, some of them may be atmospheric and some of them may be true comparative interiors, but I include images where I want the project to go. They may not go there, but I want to put it in front of them.
Right.
Well,
Right.
I think one of the things that is you have to do is, Rocky is saying, you know, we have a very wide open approach. They walk in and we don't have a preconceived notion of what they want. A lot of times they bring stuff with them. We encourage them to bring in pictures of houses or buildings or colors. And sometimes they show up and have done their homework. Sometimes they don't. But to get anywhere with any client, you have to take them through a process so you can have a relationship and understanding. And everyone's different. We have clients that want books and paper. So we give them books. And if they're saying, well, I want to go more of an English sort of arts and crafts house, or they have something, they don't even know what they're talking about. So we have to pull books that show them what Legends architecture is about, or this or that. Is this what you mean? A lot of times they'll say, well, no, that's not English to me. That's, you know, French. So you have to get the language. It's like you might be talking English and they're talking French. But in this process, you start to see things that they respond favorably to. Then you start sending them images that support that so that you can now narrow the pathway and start them down the journey.
Bill, do you use Pinterest, Bill?
Do what?
Do you use Pinterest or?
Yes. We have Pinterest boards for people that are technically savvy that want to use it. Some of them won't touch it. Some of our clients we give books to, and then we give them 2 colors of stickers. One's red and one's green.
Oh, I love that.
And they go through the book and we say, I want you to look at every page, and there's 1,000 pages here. Your task is to flip through every page and every picture, put a green or a red sticker on it, okay? And then when you go through, they can do that. I mean, it's very simple. It's a good way for them to do homework because now they're playing a game with you, right? And they're participating. But if you ask them to go through and decide what they like about something other than just their emotional reaction, clients always emotionally know what they want, but they do not know what they really need or want. That's why we're hired. Because if our clients knew what they needed and wanted, they wouldn't hire us.
Right, absolutely.
They come to us for that. They come to us for direction. And they come to us to assemble the orchestra so they can have a beautiful concert to live in. Right. And we have to show them that, but we have to decide whether they want to hear, you know, rock and roll, country, or whatever. And all top forms of music can be beautiful, properly composed. All forms of architecture, whether it's modern, contemporary, vernacular, traditional, classical, on and on and on, can all be wonderful. But it's really about trying to take their dream, because we're the dream makers. We're the ones that create their dreams for them. And they have to dream with us. And the way you do that is you take Rocky's approach of they walk in, the whole world's there, tell me what you like and dislike about the world. But once you decide they like the sun in a particular place or that, then you can start showing them the photographs that direct them to the sunlight on the wall, and you can talk to them about what they want. And then you can use images of your own work if you have them to support it. But if you don't, Picasso said it best, you know, great artists borrow, and he said good artists borrow, great artists steal. So if your competition's done beautiful work, you should show their work, because we're all in this together. We're all trying to produce a higher standard of design and architecture. You know, a rising tide floats all boats, so let's support it. You know, we'll say, well, this is someone who does, someone we admire and respect as an architect and interior designer, and this is their work, and this is a lot of what you're describing to me. We can help you with this, but here it is here. And in some ways that reinforces the importance of the design industry as a whole, all of us, and our value. But it also, you have to tell them it's such and such's work, because that's the proper thing to do and acknowledge it. But on the other hand, clients appreciate that. They're willing to say, well, this person's willing to risk me going there just to have a relationship with me and help me get what I want. And that really, this whole transparency of dialogue and honesty and of course technology, we use the computers, we send lots of images, we use pen crests, they have pen boards, we have all of that kind of stuff for individuals. We have one client that's been penning images for 3 years, because they spent 3 years designing their modest, $50 million house. But on the other hand, they evolved. It was amazing to look at the first images, which were, in my opinion, as an architect, were god-awful, okay? But they grew in that 3 year to where I'm going, wow, they're actually picking things better than I would pick or do.
Right.
And they're smart people. They educated themselves to the process. One of the things as architects and interiors is you have to respectfully educate your clients about design, because design is acquired through time and practice. You're not necessarily born a great designer.
Right.
But it's environmental.
A lot of this conversation has been about meeting and managing expectations.
Right.
What about exceeding expectations? So I'm going to quote Rocky said yesterday, when you give clients exactly what they want, you've gone through all the Pinterest boards and everything is nailed down to perfection, and you're going to give them exactly what they want, you will end up disappointing them. So how do we start with, we've done our optometrist A/B test. We've got a really good feel for what's in this person's heart. How are we going to take them beyond what they think they want into something even better? Olvia, tell me about your process in terms of taking clients out of their comfort zone and pushing them into something that goes beyond what they think they want.
I do it gently.
Yeah.
Clearly, you want the client to feel like they're being heard. And, I've witnessed, my father was an urban planner, and I would witness him kind of speaking to clients in a way that ignored what they were saying. So, making them feel like they're part of the process, making them feel like they're heard, but guiding them in a direction that you think is the right direction. And so ultimately, I hope that in having this period of image sharing and talking about mid-century modern or minimalism or traditionalism, whatever it is, that you're really kind of disciplining your client to hone in on their direction. And you do it soon enough that actually you have the time to really make that, whatever the direction is, make it exceptional. I like to think that we're always surprising our clients, that we're always exceeding their expectations. But a lot of it is having the discipline to say, okay, it's time to stop looking at the wide world of imagery. We've got our vocabulary now. Let us do our magic.
Okay, and then you come back to them, and what happens? Jitters? This is scary. What happens?
We use very high quality computer renderings, which we do in house, and we actually use them to build, the drawings completely, so it's a living model. So the danger with that is that they can look a little cold unless you've really added the lighting and the accessories and the moody aspects, you know, the soft aspects. So the computer renderings really do help them visualize three-dimensional space, because many clients can't read drawings, right? So having 3D renderings that have the light quality that you're trying to evoke really helps. And basically, you know, because a lot of it is just, they can't verbalize what they like. And
Right.
You know.
And when you present this, are you doing this remotely now? So you will do a Zoom?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like, you know, sometimes clients say, oh, just, you know, send me the design package or pre-designed package and we'll look at it. And I always like to present it in person because you can kind of control it better.
You need to read them, right? While it's being presented.
You need to read them. It's harder to read with Zoom, but Zoom is quite confrontational. So you can control what they're seeing. You can control the pace, you know, which is good. So strangely enough, Zoom is not a bad technique.
Okay. Okay.
It's awkward, you know, the time lapse.
Right. Sure. Is there a room in the house where you find people are most wedded to what they think they want, where they really want that kitchen? Is there an area in the house where you think, I'm going to kind of back off on pushing the envelope and go closer to what's in their mind already? Rocky, have you experienced that?
Well, I'm thinking of a specific incident as you're bringing this up. I'm doing a project for a client. This is the third home I've done for them. I did their first home. It wasn't their first home. The first home I did for them probably 20 years ago. And then I did a beach home for them probably 6 years ago. Yeah, now I'm doing a condo for them. And so we have this ongoing relationship that gets deeper and richer on every project, and especially in terms of trust. And I want them to put furniture in this kind of gallery space that's next to these biparting doors that open to a terrace that look over the city. And we have a reflecting pool that's next to it with this loose side stair that goes up to their roof. Okay, so I've been saying, you guys, we do need to have furniture here. You're not gonna like it because I know their head. I've done their imagery. One thing I want to say about the imagery quote you made, I want to kind of clarify that a little bit. I actually truly believe you deliver what they want. It's when people aren't able to articulate what they want that you get into trouble. Okay, yeah. There's a nuance to that statement that you're quoting. I want to clarify that. So what I think we do as professionals to be successful is we listen. And all we really are doing is problem seeking, problem solving at the end of the day. So, you know, I'm telling them, I know them well enough and how they want the apartment to feel, and it's a huge apartment. I know that they're going to want comfort and they're going to want lounge chairs, and they want to sit there because this in Seattle, we have a lot of rainy weather. So this is a covered terrace. This is going to be the hot spot to sit. So during COVID, I have had to have the last 2 meetings going up to their beach home. We go out to the barn and we have masks and gloves. But we're trying to keep things moving because the construction has been activated again. And so I have a meeting where I'm meeting them next Wednesday, specifically at the site, because it's getting closer, you know, you can see more of it, so they can actually feel that space. So sometimes, you know, when people really dig in deep on something, you do have to listen, and you have to find out that you have to make sure you don't let them get in the way. This was kind of that story we were talking about yesterday in my early career. Sometimes you get seduced by people if you don't have the confidence to really have their best interests always at heart, and not your ego. I really am a strong believer my ego doesn't get to go in the room. So if I'm always doing it for their best interest, then I'm always pushing for that. So I'm taking these people up to go sit in that room so they can see it's a lot bigger than they ever thought it was going to be when they're walking through it during construction, because things are being opened up. So that's the example I'm thinking when you're asking that.
Right. So are you saying, do you guys all agree so that we have to be completely divorced from the idea that our clients are going to like us at every step of the way?
Yes.
Yes.
So how do you weather that? Like, hey, I don't want to lose this client. They need to like me to keep me. I know that's not true.
Well, I don't think your clients have to like you, period. I think they have to respect you and have a dialogue with you. There's a big difference between like. I work with a lot of clients that actually I don't like. But they're the clients, and they have to be respected, and they have to be communicated with in a respectful manner because they are the clients, okay? And some clients can be very nice one moment and very offensive the next. And some of that is just the way they behave emotionally in their lives. That's not something we have any control over. What we do as professionals have control over is how we react to that. And when the client comes in, to Rocky's point, if you're always thinking of the best interest of the client first, and your ego down the road or your opinion, and when they come in, they're upset about something, you can say, well, first thing you say, I'm sorry, but I was trying to think like you and in your best interest. Well, at that point, whatever anger or problems are completely disarmed because now you're on their side.
Right.
And then from there, you can start the dialogue back to what's reasonable and fair. But if you do something like I've seen some of the people here in the office do, they'll say, well, you asked for this. Why is it you don't like it?
Right.
Well, okay, that's a good way to not have a good discussion because that's a debate. And what you want to do is have dialogue. And dialogue is the most important way to encourage people to move through something successfully. And you can be the most gifted architect or designer in the world, but if you can't communicate that to the person who's going to support you and pay for this to be done, you will never have built work.
It's like building any relationship.
Yeah.
This is relationship 101.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think as designers and architects, we also have to be kind of psychologists. You know, you have to know how to get there. You have to be willing to do that. And to Bill's point, I think that sometimes the most talented people in our industry are the people who are also the best with people.
Yeah.
You know, they know how to navigate through people.
I think it's very important that they like you, actually. I think it's important because I read Malcolm Gladwell wrote a chapter about medical malpractice and like which doctors would get sued and which wouldn't.
That was so interesting in all bedside manner.
It was
that's a great example that you brought up about malpractice. It's, you know, the doctor that has the good bedside manner, they can screw up constantly and never get sued.
Exactly.
The great surgeon who is an arrogant, you know, blankety blank a-hole, you know, it can be absolutely magnificent with the surgery and nothing go wrong, but he gets sued. And it's all about perception and relationships. And the same thing applies to our industry as that would be. And so that's your first thought. How do you manage that? And everyone on this call and probably everybody listening is a talented architect and a talented designer, and we all do wonderful work. The real question is, this conversation is about how we manage that process. And so we have to, a lot of times, set aside a lot of our design things and manage the process first, and then it opens up all the possibilities. And
yeah, I agree. Olvia, to your point, the doctor, the bedside manner, right? You need
the doctor who calls you back is the one.
Right. But that doctor isn't going to tell you to take the medical course of action that you want to take. The doctor's going to give you their professional opinion delivered in a beautiful way that the client or the patient may not agree with. So it's trust, right?
Yes.
Trust.
Yes, and yes.
Well, here's a good example with a client. I was on a Zoom call with a client in Delaware. He's bought one of the old big estates up there, and it's It's a wonderful property, you know, and we're doing a beautiful house. He's collects bonsais. He has the largest collection in North America, and he's very much into the nature. And it's an old DuPont estate. It's where we're doing. But he asked me a question today. One question was, what do you think how this would work? And it's very clear there's a right way and a wrong way. So he's a smart man. So we coached him through the right way versus the wrong way, gave my professional opinion, which he listened. But then he comes back with a question, and he's got, you know, 10 stones, different type of stone patterns and materials he wants to put on his house, of which 2 would be absolutely perfect. Okay, either one would work equally well. Well, in that case, you have to tell him these 8 don't work because of this. So let's set them over here. You have 2 possibilities. Either one is an A candidate. Either one would be immaculate on your home and fit your property and grow from the land and all that. And then you sit there and say, respectfully, it's your choice, because you're the one that has to walk to this house every day and walk in it. Which stone do you love? Because they're both, in our professional opinion, equally as good. And so that's the dialogue. You're giving a professional opinion. You've gotten rid of the 8 bad things, right?
That's good.
And now you're down to 2 good things, but you want him to come in and be part of the solution.
Have some ownership. Yeah. So here we have a question. How do you deal with a client who is adamant about a design element that you know will not be aesthetically pleasing to the space? And this was not in the question, but I'll add it. And P.S. now it's going to have your name on it if you execute.
You quit.
Well, it's kind of like a timeout technique with parenting. It's like
absolutely
something where you try to deflect and you try to like bunt it to another day, like, okay, let's move on. And then because you can't, if you say that's absolutely awful, this won't work.
That's not going to work, right?
You're going to alienate them. So the goal is somehow ask them, probe, question them why they like it, try to explain why these other stones might have been more appropriate. But with time, I find that they actually do come around.
Okay, so maybe the hack here is talk to them, really meet them where they are in their mind, get into their thinking, find out why, and back off. And then maybe you come and then give it some time, because that is parenting 101, because you do not want to get into a high conflict, me versus you.
Well, I think the first thing you do is you have to acknowledge their thought.
Yes, you have to.
When you acknowledge their thought and they understand you're listening, then it's the same thing with the child. You can now have their attention. You now start moving through a process. And it can be as simple, they can happen very quickly in a matter of moments. They can get it, or it could take, I had one client, a specific client who came to us and said he wanted a really nice, showy house because he made money. He's very young, in his 38 years old, made millions of dollars, walked in and says, I want to make a statement. Well, he showed me what he wanted to do. He wanted to buy a 2-acre lot. He wanted to put a 75,000 square foot house on it. He wanted to do it in Pepto-Bismol purple, stucco, god-awful color. Wanted to put 4 big white plastic columns on the front of it. And I'm thinking, this is just absolutely horrible. I don't want to do this. But the first thing I said, well, that's nice, but would you like to spend some time before we get in design and go look at some projects and travel a little bit? And I knew this guy was going to build a significant home. And in fact, the home they built is one on the slideshow here. And it just won the award for the best traditional Beaux-Arts house in the United States and Europe.
Wow.
And it's all cut limestone. So I said, well, let's spend 2 weeks together. I had time. So I took him to Biltmore, Nashville, North Carolina. I took him to upstate New York. I took him to the Breakers. I took him to London. I took him to Paris. And we spent 2 weeks looking at the type of architecture he wanted, the Beaux-Arts classical architecture, which he described. But he was looking at a cheap imitation of it. Well, when he got done, he said, I don't want that. I want something like I saw. So we built a complete limestone house. It's the only house in the United States where 32-foot tall columns are one-piece turnstile. It's this house. And it's on 50 acres. It's a half a mile from the road. So it's in scale. You see it a half a mile away. And as you drive up to it, it's monumental, of course, but that stone column is 32 feet tall, the shaft, and it's one piece of turnstile because he became so precise in the exactness of the craft that he didn't want to see joints interrupting the veining, and those are fluted columns.
Wow.
He actually bought a quarry to get access to the lathe to make those and put it back in there. That's the passion you can generate when you're willing to invest the passion in your client.
Right.
And that is a beautiful house. But can you imagine that size house in plastic, 50 feet from the road? My God, it would have been terrible, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's just trying to understand like what it is about that photograph of that cheap house. What is it that they like? What are they responding? And then you
The columns.
And you show them the positive example, like Bill said.
Yeah, they had just never seen anything. They were 38 years old. They had got out of high school, went to college, and they had worked 24/7 at a business. All they knew was a business.
Right.
And that they were very limited in their view of good design. Where they grew up, there wasn't anything worth looking at. It wasn't their fault. They just never had the exposure. And so the task in this case was to expose them because I knew they were smart. I knew they were hardworking. I knew they wanted to do something nice. All I had to do was, serve them the secret sauce and they were off, right?
So do you first of all, it's, we have about 10 more minutes to go. Please feel free to send in your questions. We'd love to hear from you. And as I wait for them to come in, I'll ask a couple more questions. Do you find that with Pinterest and with, Chip and Joe and these kind of things, do you find that clients are really get stuck on one aesthetic trend that is everywhere right now and that you have to ease them beyond that? Does that happen to your clients?
You mean that white shaker kitchen and encaustic tile?
Sure. That's, of whatever's of the moment. Is that something that you need to work clients beyond typically?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a problem because, all the glitters isn't gold. And the other thing is, you have to explain to the clients there's a difference in style and substance. I think what we do as designers and architects is create substantial solutions and cohesive and thoughtful. And we look at livability along with everything from functionality. Is it going to work over time? Is it going to be beautiful over time? Is it sustainable? All of these things have to go through our brains. What they're looking at is a photograph of a style at a moment in time. And if you explain it like that and show them that there's more to it than just a style, because a style is great when it comes to a hairstyle or dress or something, but architecture and design can be for a long, long time.
Right.
And we tell them this is going to be for years and forever. So we have to think past today's moment.
Totally. Exactly. And that's why I refuse to do moderate panels where they talk about is black the new gray or is low slung the new thing, because you do not buy a sofa the way you buy a pair of jeans. It's not possible, and it shouldn't be. I don't like home as trend.
If you have a quick thing, if you ask the client that they want the flavor of today or timeliness, all of them are going to say timeliness.
Right, right.
Not one wants the flavor of the day.
All right, we have a really interesting question. Have any of you delved into Jungian psychology for your own growth and development to understand how your client's mind is working? Because as Rocky said, you are psychologists and oftentimes you're couples counselors too, right?
Oh my God, negotiators.
Right,
I had
right.
one couple who agreed that the husband would make all the final decisions at the second floor and the wife would make the decisions for the first floor. And that's safe for marriage.
Right, but a lot of success in interior design comes from having this psychological understanding of how the mind works. Have any of you actually done like, I don't know, like any sort of like psychological training actually? And what would you recommend?
Well, I've been in therapy until last September. I just stopped for some weird reason. Well, it wasn't a reason, but I was in therapy for 35 years. So, and it was really great for me. My therapist was Jungian, and she was a mix of lots of different things. And we would do lots of dream therapy. I learned a lot by losing inhibition. Inhibition is, in my opinion, the enemy of creativity. Unless you're willing to let go of everything and go deep. I mean, people are using psychotropics now, right? You're hearing a lot of stuff about mushrooms and stuff for the same reason, for curing things like depression. It's very important for people to learn how to let go. We do it every night when we dream, right? Yeah. When we fall asleep, we dream. People say to me, "You're so creative." And I said, "So are you." And they said, "No, no." And I said, "Did you have a dream last night?" "Yes." "Look at you. You made a movie in seconds, you know?" So, yes. But I also am really curious about people. Yeah. So when I love a client, I love clients where the partners are totally different from each other, because through my imagery, and back to that question you asked earlier about have you ever had a client come to you that wants something and insist on it and you don't want to do it? I've never had that happen. And I believe, and that's really an arrogant thing for me to say actually, but I do believe it's my process, because when a client comes to me and says, "I don't want to do that," then we go back to their image board. And I had a client, for instance, who they had a home that was built in the 20s and it had that cheapy, ugly mahogany wood all around it. And he just could not let go of it. And so I sat with him and I said, "Let's go back to your imagery. Do you see anything like that in this imagery?" And he went, "You're absolutely right. Thank you." So again, my image boards that are quilted, that are the concept, they're kind of they're the story. And so the client learns that is where we go. If there's some kind of conflict, we go there. But again, it's done without inhibition. It is done free. It's free, and then it's liked. It's liked at the end. Right. And even staff who work for me, they need to, when they're making a decision, you go to the image board. Does that fit what we're talking about? And it's like, no, no, no. It's got to be, you're supporting an idea. It's like writing a book. It's like directing or writing a movie. It's like writing a song, you know? How do I express this to reflect an idea? And that's what we're doing visually.
Right, right.
It's not just understanding the psychology or using psychology to understand your client. It's also knowing that spaces create emotions in people.
Absolutely.
And, you know,
individually,
dark and atmospheric with mahogany wood. It's very corporate, you know, like you're triggering all these kind of associations with our interiors.
Right, absolutely. So let me ask real quickly, we're getting near the end. Each of you, where do you go for visual inspiration on your phone? No one's traveling right now, so we're stuck. Where's a website? Where's an app? Where's a publication? Beyond, we all know Aspire Design and Home is hugely inspirational. Where else do you go? Is it an app that you use? I'm always on the hunt for fabulous visual apps. Or do you follow someone on Pinterest or on Instagram?
Pinterest is obviously a big wide world, and I actually do like seeing what other images, if I see an image I like and I look to see what other ones, it opens new portals and new ideas. Right. So, I mean, that's been a very useful tool.
Okay, so you go there for your own inspiration.
At this point, I mean, you know, my inspiration might just come out of my head, sure. But in order to connect with a client and guide them or understand sure. them, that has been a good tool. And getting them to contribute to the Pinterest makes them engaged in part of the process.
Great, Great. Rocky, how about you? What are you obsessed with right now?
You know, I'm watching movies and movies and movies and movies. This whole COVID thing has done weird things to me. I've learned so many things going through it. And I've gone inward quite a bit, you know. Yeah, and movies are really, you know, it's almost like fantasy. And I love watching, I've been watching the Medici series. Like, I just love looking at all that history. And there's different things that stimulate me visually. I love to go to Pinterest too. And when I do it, I like that because it's inspiring. But I would have to say right now, it's movies and it's Netflix. Okay, it's Netflix. And there's a lot of bad ones before you get to the ones that are inspiring me, but that's kind of where my head's at right now.
Very good. Bill, how about you?
Well, I try to spend an hour a day because, you know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in my house that I don't particularly care to watch on TV because I have, you know, college-age kids that are all home and they have their opinion of their shows. And, you know, I mean, if I have to look at another episode of Grey's Anatomy, I'm gonna shoot myself. But the point of that is I have a home office that I can sit, and I have a big screen TV, and I pull up, I go through, and I just start Googling architects and designers.
Great.
I mean, I look at Pinterest and stuff, but I really, like Rocky, I knew I was going to be on the call with you. I Googled you. And I sat there and looked at all your images. And I was excited and inspired. And for me, it brought great joy to me seeing what you do. Okay. And for that's where I go. I go into the industry. I look at our peer groups. I look at past designers. I go back to Andrea Palladio. I pull out a book on him. I look at his architecture. And when I could travel years ago, I visited every project Andrea Palladio ever built in Italy. Personally went there and drew them and studied them. But I learned from other architects, past, present, and I have sat and poured hours on other professional sites thinking, this is absolutely wonderful.
Right.
This is really good. And, you know, and I borrow from them, I learn from them, I try to interpret it. And I think education is about knowledge. And the more knowledge you can see and be involved in, the better you become as an architect or designer. I think, you know, when you start out young, you actually think you know more than you do. But on the other hand, as you mature and get to be in my age group, and I'm probably the oldest one on the call here, but I've started to learn that I'm just now touching the knowledge base that's out there. It's extraordinary. And in the past, you had to travel and spend days and months getting there. But now you can sit down in an hour and go to all these places and have incredible experiences. You can do it through movies. Some of the movie places where they film movies, if you go to one of these that's really incredibly visually well done, from, you know, looking through the buildings or the property or the interiors, there's some extraordinary talent in costume making. I mean, think about the incredible costumes that are made. Think about the incredible interiors these people create for a film. When you're there, you know, you maybe have to watch the film 3 times to even understand what's really there.
Right.
And so when you have opportunities and you're quarantined and you're this or that, it's not a sad time, it's an opportunity to change and become a better person and a better architect or designer. And our profession is not a job, it's a life passion. And we're supposed to live it to the fullest and engage it to the fullest. Right. And that allows us to love our projects, love our clients, and love everything we do. And that's why Rocky, when he sits home, is watching movies and all he's thinking about, my God, look at the architecture here.
Right,
Because you can't help yourself.
I mean,
okay,
travel is the ultimate inspiring.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be looking forward to when that can happen again.
Mhm.
All right, everyone, thank you. The hour is up, and I want to thank our panelists so much for joining us today. I want to thank everyone who attended, and I want to thank Aspire Design and Home Magazine. A recording of today's discussion will be on the Aspire Design and Home website, probably by about Friday. And anyone who has attended, you're going to be receiving an email form. If you fill out the form and return it, you will get a annual, you will be getting an annual subscription, digital subscription to the magazine. So thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. We enjoyed it.
Thanks
Yes.
so much.